I was working at a train station in rural Japan. A British couple came to the ticket counter and started speaking very loudly in English. "I need 2 tickets to Kyoto." The clerk, who spoke limited English, struggled with their accent. The husband raised his voice. "Kyoto, 2 tickets." His wife chimed in. "This is ridiculous. English is the international language. You work at a train station. How can you not speak English? It's literally your job." The husband said, "Forget it. We'll find someone competent." They stormed off, leaving the clerk looking defeated. I later saw them at the help desk, insisting the entire station needed English-speaking staff because they pay good money to visit Japan. I was a waiter at a small restaurant in rural Portugal. A British family sat down and started barking orders in English. The father said, "Right, we'll have 4 fish and chips. Make sure the chips are proper chips, not those thin French things." I politely said in Portuguese that I'd explained to the kitchen. He looked horrified. "You don't speak English? Seriously? We're 20 miles from the Algarve. That's where all the Brits holiday. You should know English by now." His wife added, "It's basic customer service. If you want our business, make an effort." I tried explaining this was a local restaurant. He said, "Well, that's your problem. Poor business model." I was working reception at a hotel in Buenos Aires. A British guest came down complaining that no one in the city spoke English. He said, "I've been to 3 shops and a restaurant. Not one person understood me." I tried to hail a taxi and the driver just stared. "What kind of city doesn't have English speakers?" I reminded him. "Argentina is Spanish speaking." He scoffed. "Yes, but it's a capital city. Capital cities are international. Everyone should speak English. That's how the world works." When I suggested learning basic Spanish phrases, he looked offended. "Why should I? They want tourists. They should learn our language." He asked if I could print him a sign saying, "I only speak English. Find someone who can help me." I manage a small shop in a French village. A British tourist asked me a complicated question about hiking trails in English. I apologized and explained in French that I didn't speak much English. She stared, then said loudly, "Do you speak English?" I shook my head. She turned to her husband. "Can you believe this? We're 2 hours from the coast. Surely someone here speaks English." He tried asking again, but louder. When I still couldn't help, she said, "This is what's wrong with Europe. You've all got so insular since Brexit. You used to be accommodating." They left muttering that France had gone downhill and they should have gone to Spain where people make an effort. I was working at a market stall in Marrakesh. A British woman asked in English how much the scarf cost. I told her in Arabic and showed her on my calculator. She frowned. "Can you just tell me in English? I don't understand." I typed the number again. She got irritated. "Look, just speak English. It's not difficult." Her friend said, "Excuse me, we're paying customers. The least you could do is learn English to conduct business. I'm sure you deal with British tourists constantly." I tried explaining through gestures that I spoke Arabic and French. She rolled her eyes. "Honestly, it's so rude. They want our money but won't communicate properly. If they want tourism, learn English like everyone else." They walked off without buying anything. I work at a tourist office in Reykjavik. A British man came in speaking rapid English, asking about tours and northern lights. I responded in English with an Icelandic accent. He interrupted. "Sorry, do you have someone who speaks proper English?" "I can barely understand you." I explained I was speaking English. He sighed. "Yes, but native English. Someone from Britain or maybe America to stretch. Your accent is very thick. I'm trying to plan my holiday and need clear information." I suggested our printed materials in perfect English. He said, "No, I need to speak to someone. Reading takes too long. Can you fetch someone else?" There was no one else. He left a review saying we had no English-speaking staff. I was a tour guide in Prague. A British couple kept interrupting my tour with questions. Every time I answered, the husband said, "Sorry, can you say that again in English?" "I am speaking English," I'd reply. He'd shake his head. "No, real English. You're using foreign words." I realized he wanted me to avoid Czech names for historical figures. I explained these were correct historical names. His wife said, "But we don't know those names. Can't you use English versions?" I explained there weren't always translations for Czech kings. She said, "That's not tourist friendly. If you want people to understand your history, translate everything properly." They complained to my manager that my English wasn't good enough. I was working at a Greek island pharmacy. A British woman came in describing her symptoms in English. I gestured I didn't understand and called my colleague who spoke some English. The woman got agitated. "You don't speak English. How is that possible? I need medicine. This is an emergency." My colleague tried helping, but her English wasn't fluent. The woman said, "Oh, for God's sake. Greece is full of British tourists. You'd think pharmacies would hire English speakers. It's a health and safety issue." She pulled out Google Translate and spoke slowly into it as if we were idiots. When we finally helped her, she said, "You really should take English courses. It would make your jobs easier." We just smiled politely. I work at a family restaurant in rural Vietnam. Vietnam. A British couple picked up our Vietnamese menu with pictures. The man looked at me. English menu. I shook my head apologetically. He turned to his wife. They don't have an English menu. How are we supposed to order? She said. Just point and speak clearly. He tried asking what each dish was, but I couldn't understand. He got frustrated. This is a joke. We're in a tourist area. How do they expect to serve foreigners? His wife agreed. In Thailand, everywhere had English menus. Vietnam needs to catch up. They eventually ordered by pointing but complained loudly the entire meal that the country wasn't set up properly for tourists. I was working at Barcelona train station. A British man came to my window. Return to Madrid, please. I asked a clarification question in Spanish about which train time. He stared blankly. I repeated in broken English, what time? He exploded. This is a major train station in a major city. How do you not speak English? I'm trying to give you money. He started shouting, return to Madrid. His wife joined in. Honestly, this is embarrassing for Spain. Barcelona is international. You'd think they'd hire bilingual star. A colleague with better English helped them. As they left, I heard him say, it's political. They refuse to speak English because they're nationalists. It's pathetic. I manage a guest house in rural Thailand. A British couple checked in and asked where the nearest English pub was. I told them there wasn't one in our village. The husband looked horrified. No English pub? What about restaurants with English menus? I explained our village was traditional and catered to locals. The wife said, but you have tourists. You're a guest house. I nodded. She continued, so how do tourists communicate? I explained most learn Thai phrases or use translation apps. He shook his head. That's not realistic. People holiday to relax, not study languages. You should have English-speaking staff if you're running a tourist business. They checked out next day, saying the village was too unsophisticated for British tourists. I was working at a Florence museum. A British woman asked a detailed question about Renaissance art in rapid English. I understood most, but asked her to repeat one part. She sighed dramatically. Never mind, I'll find someone who speaks English. I told her I do speak English. She replied barely. I need proper information, not broken sentences. Can you get me a native speaker? I explained I was the only assistant on duty. She said, that's terrible customer service. The British Museum would never have non-English speakers at their desk. It's insulting to English-speaking tourists. She took an audio guide, but not before saying you really should improve your English if you're working at a major tourist site. It's embarrassing for Italy. I work at a currency exchange in Istanbul. A British man asked about rates in English. I gave him the rate in Turkish lira. He said, in pounds, please. I told him the equivalent. He started asking complicated questions about fees using terminology I didn't know. He got annoyed. Right, this is pointless. You don't speak English well enough. Can I speak to your manager? My manager came and completed the transaction. The man said to his friend, honestly, Turkey is trying to be this big international destination, but they can't staff currency exchanges with English speakers. It's amateur hour. If they want to be taken seriously as a modern country, they need to sort out their language education. His friend agreed completely. I was working at Athens airport car rental. A British family arrived for their booking. I greeted them in English and processed their paperwork. The father asked very specific insurance questions using British terminology I wasn't familiar with. When I asked him to clarify, he said, oh God, you don't really speak English, do you? I explained I did, but insurance terms were technical. He said, this is an international airport. You should have native English speakers for car rentals. What if there's an emergency? How will you understand us? I assured him our roadside assistants had English speakers. His wife said, we should have gone to Spain. At least there everyone speaks English because they actually want British tourists. I work at a cafe in a southern French village. A British couple came in and ordered in English. I brought them coffee. Minutes later, the woman called me over and said something very quickly I didn't understand and asked her to repeat. She spoke louder and slower, but I still couldn't grasp it. She turned to her husband, exasperated. They don't speak English. In a cafe, in France, in the 21st century. He called over, can someone here speak English? My uncle came out with basic English and determined they wanted coffee reheated. After he helped, she said, if you're running a cafe in a tourist region, you need English speakers. We spend money in France. The least you could do is hire staff who understand us. It's basic economics. If you've enjoyed British tourists shouting at locals who won't speak English, give it a like and subscribe for more. Cheers.